and welcome back to this special series of interviews conducted in collaboration between COVINTS and the Kootneeti. Today it is indeed an honor and a privilege to have Lieutenant General A.B. Shivane sir here with us and giving his opinions and insights into some of the burning questions as far as defense of the Indian realm is concerned. Before we move on to the formal interview, I would like to briefly introduce Shivane sir. Lieutenant General Ashok Bhim Shivane sir has been an alumnus of National Defence Academy Pune and has joined the Indian Army in 1978. Sir has been a scholar warrior with 40 years of unblemished and outstanding career in the Indian Army, and during his coveted career, he has really excelled in all spheres. During his career, Sir has represented India at the United Nations peacekeeping forces in Guatemala. He was also in charge of anti-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir from 1997 to 1999. And also he was in charge of perspective planning and future restructuring of Indian Army. And then he was appointed as the Director General of Mechanized Forces of Indian Army. Sir has commanded the oldest and operationally employed offensive formation of Indian Army, the Elite Strike Corps from 2014 to 2015, and was responsible for offensive operations during war. Sir has been awarded by the President of India the PVSM in 2017, AVSM in 2016, and VSM in 2009. Besides, the Chief of Army Staff Commendation and Army Commander Commendation for distinguished service of the highest order. Sir was bestowed with the rare honor of being nominated as Honorary Aide-de-Camp to the President of India in July 2017 in recognition of his distinguished services to Indian Army. It's an absolute honor and privilege that we have you here, sir, and I believe we can start with the interview with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please do.
So, sir, since you have a lot of experience in the mechanized armed forces, so what do you feel about the modernization in our military? How important it is? Where are we currently?
Certainly, it's undisputed the importance of having a strong military, because unless you have a strong military, you will not be a strong nation. And a strong defense forces is an insurance to the nation for its foreign policy goals and its development. So when you talk of defense, development, and diplomacy, the other two only get empowered once you have a strong defense system. Now, as far as historically and present, the defense capability building, if I may say, I think essentially I would confess to say we were slow starters, maybe for a large number of reasons, getting the nation together. But there are three key players in this game of modernization and defense capability building. One is the policymakers and the providers of the most important means, which is the defense budget. Second is the facilitators, who are the developers, the technologists, and the manufacturers, in short, the defense industrial base and the indigenous defense industry, essentially. And the third and the most important corner of that triangle, if I may say, is the end user who's going to fight. And he has to fight to win. There are no, there are only winners and losers in war. There are no runners up. So he has to fight, for which modernization is an essential facet of his capabilities against an adversary to ensure victory for the nation. So to put it in short, there are no shortcuts for a nation, but to ensure that its defense forces are capable of present and future threats and develop capabilities for the nation to come to its rightful pedestal in the comity of nations worldwide.
Yeah. And sir, another question I'm reading a lot about India's defense modernization. How has it has evolved quite a bit in the 21st century, and it is important since our neighborhood is very complex. We need to have a very advanced military system. We need to have increased budgeting in the system as well.
Two,
So, what do you think is the roadmap to the growth in the defense industry?
I would put it in three or four essential points if we have to get our defense industry and defense modernization to the right place. Firstly, is as far as the policies are concerned, a large number of policies have been undertaken or enunciated in the recent times. Uh, yet, there is a gap between policies and outcomes which have not been commensurate to the expectation. Why so? Because when you make policies, you have to also address the old mindsets and old structures. Unless the mindset and structures change with the policy, I'm afraid the policy outcome will never be commensurate. One. Two, when you do a reformation or transformation, it must also result in transformation and reformations of the defense budget. It has to be viewed not only in terms of quantitative manner, because uh, the last defense budget was one. If you take out the defense pensions, it was 1.5% of the GDP, which is less than 1962. And if you, we don't have the time, but finally, what matters is what is the budget for your new schemes in under the capital head. I'm afraid that was peanuts, and you don't get almonds if you provide peanuts. So therefore, you have to look at this more pragmatically, bring in reforms in terms of roll-on budgeting, assured budgeting for modernization, new schemes, domestic market assured budgeting has been set aside, but it must have a roll-on budget. But for a major scheme, it takes 6 to 8 years for it to manifest. Second greatest thing, why there's a dissuasion in spite of all the policy, wonderful policies, FDI, offsets, a whole lot of them. You know, when someone invests in industry invests, he looks at it as a business model. Whether Indian industry, it must make a good business. Now, a good procurement takes, I told you, 6 to 8 years minimum. It at times gone to 12 years. If you're going to change your DPP and DAP every 4 to 5 years, 2011, 2016, 2020, and keep changing them, there is no continuity and assurance of predictability of a model that he wanting to put ahead. So, to, in short, we have to foster our defense industrial base and give confidence both to the national the private industry and those who wanting to make in India a viable thing. The user also has a role to play. He has what I'm going to speak on the final day is look at modernization in terms of a strategy which is a joint force capability. So, not as a single force capability. One. Second, it has to be based on a value, vulnerability, and risk analysis. We're such a vast army, we can't get everything. We can't look at the moon and say we provide us a budget for that. So there has to be prioritization based on value, vulnerability, and risk analysis. Once all this amalgam takes place and all the stakeholders talk to each other, not like the Ashoka tigers of the lions on the Ashoka, which face in different directions, they have to talk to each other and then evolve and be equal stakeholders. I think our private industry has got tremendous potential. It still remains untapped, and I think I am looking forward to in the next decade a change from import orientation to an export oriented defense industry.
Moving ahead. as we see, like in the 21st century, the modes of warfare and the tactics of warfare are also changing. We are seeing the new versions of what is referred to as a proxy warfare as well as a hybrid warfare. So, in that domain, I would like to ask is how do you assess the current preparedness to tackle these new age challenges? And based on that, in what domains, in your view, we can still improve further and how? Thank you.
Okay. Uh, the nature of warfare has not changed. It's as violent uh, as as it is. What has changed is the character of warfare. And character of warfare is changed because of technologies and the ability and the focus to win in the least time and at the least cost, as such. Even the notion of victory has changed because of the character warfare. The erstwhile conventional wars going on for months, or if not 20, 30 days, has changed. Today, you're looking at a blend of hybrid warfare along with a limited warfare to be able to gain uh, an advantage. The notion of victory, an absolute victory or absolute loss, is got ambiguous in this game. But where does India stand? I think India today, you have seen there are three facets which give credibility to a nation as far as defense forces. One is capability. Second is credibility of its employment, which is a factor of political will. And third is the strategic communication that you convey to all players outside that look, if there's something going to happen, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take action, like we did at Balakot, or like we gave a response in Galwan, or went south of Prangso and did what we have to do. So therefore, in these three facets, I think we are doing well. Where we lack is in technology and infrastructure, particularly in our northern borders, which a lot of attention has been given, but a lot more has to be done in quick time frame. Today, we are the only country in the world who has faced China and put them in the place where they needed to be put. The misadventure, I'm sure they're carrying a lot of lessons. You see their think tanks, both Galwan, Perangso, and earlier also, starting from Mathura in 67. Uh, uh, they, they, they have now realized that Indian Defense Forces is not going to be something where they will have their way through, but we have to concentrate and do a lot. We have to be prepared for the worst, that is China as our main threat, Pakistan in collision, and the hybrid aspect of terrorism also being tackled. So we have a long way to go, but I think the focus, both in terms of restructuring, which you've just heard of, in terms of the strike course, the force levels, the capabilities, both at sea also. Today, sea is becoming an increasing area, Navy, of collective security mechanisms for a collective deterrence to be put in place. So if you see the entire canvas, I think we are heading towards the right course, but we have to not walk, we have to gallop. And we have to gallop fast because the threat is not knocking on our doors, it is already there. Yeah.
And I actually had a question, sir, regarding the alliances. How do you think India can achieve its national interests through alliances such as the Quadrilateral Initiative and the Indo-Pacific Vision? What is your view on that?
I think collective security arrangement, I would call it partnerships. I would not call it alliances because alliances are focused towards a nation. Uh, we have to have a strategic balance in our foreign policy. Uh, you you have to look at your neighborhood. You have to look at Russia, who's been always your trustworthy friend in times of crisis. You can't just,
Yes, sir.
switch off. You have to look at America to filling the gap of your capabilities and technologies, and you have to look at the collaborative security arrangement through Quad and Indo-Pacific, defense cooperation and partnerships. So it has to be looked at as this. But remember, there are no interests but self-interests in the world. So you have to be very clear. You cannot create dependencies. You cannot create alliances specific to a nation. You have to create partnerships to enhance deterrence to threats or future threats and to enhance your own capabilities, integral capabilities, and capabilities of joint forces, so that you as a nation uh, are not dependent on your basic security and projection of your national power and ensuring your national interests are well protected on someone outside. So, strategic autonomy is a function of not being dependent, yet uh, playing up to your national interests for collaborative arrangements and engagements and partnerships. That's my take on it.
So another question I have is regarding terrorism. What kind of how is India prepared to deal with terrorism and proxy wars, which we are seeing what Pakistan is doing, meaning what it did in Pulwama and Uri. So how do you think it's achieving its interests through state-sponsored activities?
You're right. We haven't, I think, the uh, India as a nation has faced some of the most grueling acts of terrorism, particularly proxy war by Pakistan. And when you have two revisionist nations on your border with disputed boundary who want to weaken India, I think this is here to stay. Now, we must understand when you have to talk of proxy wars and you have to talk of anti-terrorism, it's not a number game, which we get often mixed up with. That he killed two, I killed five. That's not. How do you ensure deterrence of proxy war? The two major things are one. Let's say Kashmir. There's a war of Kashmir and there's a war in Kashmir. The war in Kashmir will be curbed if your local population, your local base detests and shuns, like it did in Punjab, terrorism as a means. And towards you have to have a change in their ideology and outlook to the nation, which is a factor how they see the development, the education, the facilitations, which makes them feel that this is the India that I belong, and I will not allow it to be diluted for my benefit because I am going well and the nation looking after me. The second is the proxy war, the factor of Kashmir and interference by Pakistan. Now, for the Pakistan army to be relevant, they have to carry on with it. It's a part of their survival, irrespective of what they are. So it's here to stay. Now, how do you tackle them? You have to tackle them in a manner. There are two ways. Either you do it the Israeli way, which they call mowing the lawn, That means periodically you go across, carry out some actions to remind them, look, it's not worth it. The other is a punitive deterrence or a punitive response capability, which makes them feel that the cost benefit of carrying out proxy war is not there. And when I say punitive deterrence, it has to be both overt and, I would hesitate to say, covert capabilities too, so that they realize that they're launching a proxy war, the cost factor is much greater, much more than that. And also, they must be told in very clear terms that between the proxy war lower end and the nuclear war, there is space for a conventional response which India is prepared and which will hurt them much more. Today, they are in a very fragile state, Pakistan, both in economy, internal dissensions, the political stability. There are a whole lot of factors. The Western Front, Fatah, all these things happening. So today you have to make sure that if they firstly deter them, if they do something, hit them so hard that it sends a very clear message to them that their cost will be much, much higher and discredit their defense forces, discredit their army, so that they in turn feel that it's not worth it. We have to do it in that way. We have to be much more proactive, aggressive, and much more hard hitting. In fact, I've written an article, 4 or 5 articles when Pulwama happened before Balakot, and my strategy was hit hard, hit where it hurt where it lasts, and keep hitting till the time they stop and vanish.
Yes, sir. And so the other point is about the China-Pakistan economic corridor. China is using soft means through infrastructure and economic development to enhance its image amongst the neighborhood countries. What is your take on that?
CPEC is also the umbilical cord of both China and Pakistan, and that's why the sensitivity to it. Your question has two parts. One is the neighboring country, and the other is the importance of CPEC in the Indo-Pak China collision, Sino-Pak collision. Well, uh, again, I would say uh, while in the immediate neighborhood, particularly a few nations, we have created and allowed space to be created for China to step in. I think we need a more proactive, more benevolent, uh, and a proactive policy with our neighborhood, because if your neighborhood is not safe, and we've seen today the Chinese footprints, which is increasing in this, it can be a matter of concern for us. So neighborhood, we may look east, may act west, we may look act west, and we may look in Africa, and we may look all over. But please make sure your neighborhood is stable. Number one. As far as CPEC is concerned, CPEC is a very high psychological and uh, such a issue with China. It's more to do with ego because it cannot be allowed to fail. Pakistan is deriving the mileage from CPEC because it creates infrastructure, hopefully some jobs, as also Pakistan's economy is at such a fragile state. You've seen China has been the saver of that. But CPEC is not going to be easy. You know, uh, it may connect to Gwadar, but Karachi itself is not fully utilized as a port. When you create Gwadar, it is very clear that there is a military dimension to that through the Chinese. But what I'm trying to say is the security of CPEC, but particularly in the province of Sindh and the areas of Karachi, you have seen the sort of dissension because it has created uh, more divisions and dissension and discontentment than anything else. And I think India as a nation also has to look at what is the umbilical cord of Pakistan, China. You must be very clear to that extent also what we have to do if we have to do whenever.
Okay, and one last question also I want to ask about the technological competition between India and China. Where is India right now? We
Uh,
have introduced many uh, initiatives such as the Atmanirbhar Bharat and Digital India.
yeah, we have introduced a large number of initiatives, but we have technologically still there is a wide disparity, particularly in terms of cyber warfare, in terms of artificial intelligence, and other military technology factors, which have to be bridged and are being bridged through partnerships and defense cooperation as such. Even I would say C5 ISR is an area where we have been a delayed starter, and we have a long way to do in this capability of C5 ISR and precision long range strike capability, though missiles is something which I think we as a nation we need to be proud of. But having said that, you have seen that uh, defense capability on ground, the technology will always be a facilitator of the man on ground. The man on ground today, between the Chinaman and our brave soldiers, there is a vast difference in terms of motivation, in terms of training, in terms of ability to to uh, to go ahead and challenge the impossible and come out victorious. Finally, the Chinaman had to use, primitive means at Galwan, in spite of all his technology. But then what happened thereafter? He got a beating. What happened south of Penang still? So we need to be proud of Indian soldiers who are no, I mean, Chinaman is no match to them. But technology will certainly facilitate future warfare.
Okay, so now I would like to give the floor to Atharva. It was an honor having you for this interview, and we look forward to having you on in the Defense Conclave, which is taking place from 28th January to 30th January.
Thank you so much.
Atharva, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Vineet. And it's an absolute honor and privilege to have Shivane sir with us on board again. As always, we are grateful for your insights. And for all the viewers, I would like to urge that to hear some more insights onto domain of modernization of military to the domain of asymmetric warfare, do join us at the COVINTS organized National Security and Defense Conclave from January 28th to 30th of January to hear Sir, along with many other eminent experts and on-ground professionals in the field of defense. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the event. And I look forward to a very interactive session. That the joy of speaking is always the interaction that follows. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir.